Good evening. This is CTV News for Wednesday, March 28th. I'm Denise Douglas. So glad you could join us this evening. Well, topping our news tonight, the NAACP and Prince George's County are suing the Trump administration. At issue is the upcoming 2020 census and efforts that the plaintiffs say will undermine the integrity of the count and leave people of color undercounted. Byron Scott is at the National Press Club with the details.
The NAACP and Prince George's County are suing the federal government, alleging a number of issues they say could cause an undercount in the upcoming 2020 census. A lawsuit filed in Maryland District Court for the District of Maryland. Now, they allege in that suit understaffing and underfunding along with design flaws could result in a severe undercount of residents in Maryland and specifically Prince George's County. They want the feds to prepare for and conduct a full and fair census. Now, census numbers, you'll recall, serve as a basis for apportioning congressional seats as well as the distribution of federal funds for various programs. Now, the parties to the case held a press conference this afternoon. This is some of what they had to say.
The Trump administration's proposed and planned underfunding of the Census Bureau, its failure to fill critical senior leadership positions in the Census Bureau, its embracing of a digital census without accounting for how a digital census will affect the undercount, and its overall failure to view the undercount as a fundamental threat to our democracy led us to the view that action had to be taken, and action had to be taken now.
Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution requires the government to conduct an actual enumeration of the people every 10 years. But the government's preparations for the 2020 census are so extraordinarily deficient that they are in violation of its constitutional duty. There has been no leadership of the Census Bureau for almost a year. The government has failed to protect the first ever digital census from Russian and other cybersecurity threats.
Prince George's County officials say past counts have cost the county a 2.3% net undercount, the largest in Maryland and the sixth in the entire United States.
The undercount has impacted us by loss of federal dollars to start with. I think we calculated somewhere around $200 million over the loss of money from the undercount in the Census Bureau, the census. But the other way is making sure representation. I mean, we're about to go into a reapportionment for congressional districts, and we want to make sure in the county and in the state, because as was said, it's not just Prince George's County, it's Baltimore and the state of Maryland that's undercounted.
This is a persistent problem that we've seen census count after census count.
The plaintiffs indicated that at least one governor and several mayors have expressed interest in joining the lawsuit. In Washington, D.C., I'm Byron Scott, CTV News.
Thank you for that story, Byron. In another one of our top stories that we've been looking at, several dozen people rallied outside the Supreme Court as justices heard a redistricting case that could place limits on drawing maps for political gain. The arguments center around an appeal filed by Republicans in Maryland. They claim that Democrats who control the state government in 2011 drew a congressional district to try and oust the Republican incumbent. In Wisconsin, Democrats are also challenging legislative districts drawn by Republicans statewide. Here's more of what one of the rally organizers had to say outside the court.
So the importance of the rally here today is to raise awareness of this issue in Maryland. A lot of people pay attention to the Republican gerrymandering. It happens in Democratic states too. It's happened in Maryland. We're a nonpartisan coalition, and so we are affiliated with groups throughout the nation that are looking for reform on this, but we want to point out that in Maryland we want fair maps too, and we won't stand for it. We would love to hear the Supreme Court put an end to partisan gerrymandering and set forth some sort of standard that will disallow this in the future.
The court is expected to issue a decision by late June, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. Maryland's top political leader has frequently spoken out against gerrymandering. Our Patricia Vallone has more from the news desk.
That's right. Governor Larry Hogan recently weighed in on the Supreme Court case. Now, he says that he has long advocated for redistricting reform and saying Maryland is one of the most gerrymandered of all states.
The case before the Supreme Court to talk about partisan gerrymandering, which I think is one of the roots of all the problems we have in Washington. There's no monopoly on this problem. It's not Republicans and Democrats. I mean, we had all Democrats in the White House and in Congress. They still got nothing done. Now we have Republicans in both, and they're not getting things done. They can't agree with the other side of the aisle. They can't even agree with each other. But we're not doing that here. We are getting things done. I can't fix all the problems in Washington. That's why I didn't run for U.S. Senate or Congress. I ran for governor, and we're doing a pretty good job here just trying to stay focused on the last 2 weeks of our session.
Now, Hogan signed the Supreme Court brief siding with the Republican challengers in the 6th Congressional District.